And so I want to talk a little bit about the meaning of this month and how we can prepare ourselves to go into it. As many of you know, but maybe some of you don't, there's a famous saying, when the month of Adar comes in, we increase our happiness. Everyone knows this. I mean, if you go into any school in Israel, the kids are singing, Misha, 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 Nichnas Adar, Marbim B'Simcha. Whenever the month of Adar comes, we increase our happiness. It's sort of just a given. Of course, in the month of Adar, we're supposed to be extra happy. But then I started thinking for a moment, like, why? But seriously, why? Like, Pesach, Passover, that's a big deal. But we're happy on Passover. We never think that we need to be happy for all of the month of Nisan. Being happy is a responsibility. I don't know, maybe for some of you it comes naturally. For me, I have to work at it. Like, don't forget to be happy. So, why not be happy in the whole month of Tishrei because of Sukkot and Rosh Hashanah and Shemini Atzeret and Yom Kippur? There's so many great holidays, but we don't have to be happy for all of the non-holiday days in Tishrei. So what's up with this? So I started kind of, in my nerdy way, researching this subject. It turns out there's no like super ancient source. I mean, our sources are ancient, but in the Megillah and the scroll of Esther, there's no mention of needing to be happy throughout the month of Adar. And in all of the Mishnah, there's no mention of needing to be happy in the month of Adar. It appears for the first time in the Talmud. What does appear in the Mishnah, in the tractate of Ta'anit, is a statement about a different month. The Mishnah states, when the month of Av comes in, we need to have less happiness. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because even though we know the 9th of Av is the day of the destruction of the temple, so of course we're in terrible mourning on the 9th of Av, the 9th of Av didn't just happen in a moment. The destruction of the temple didn't just happen like boom, there was first a siege, and then the siege, was breached the walls, and then in the inner walls, and there's, this sort of development towards the final destruction. And so it makes sense that from the beginning of the month, we would already be sort of lowering our enthusiasm and getting into the sort of down mood of the month of Av. And that's all the Mishnah says. Then comes the Talmud. When the Talmud comes to interpret the Mishnah, the Talmud says, as we are sad in the month of Av, when the month of Av begins, so too must we be happy when the month of Adar comes in. And then a different rabbi in the Talmud asks, well, what does that happiness mean? And then he says, well, if you're having some sort of legal conflict with a Gentile, you should avoid going to trial in the month of Av, and you should try to sort of push your trial into the month of Adar. Now, I know I've shared with you some strange Talmudic passages, but you guys have to admit that this one might be the strangest. We're all just taking it as a given that we need to be happy in the month of Adar, but there isn't any source in the Mishnah for it. And then the Talmud says, because of the month of Av, that we're sad in the month of Av, now we need to be happy in the month of Adar. And then it says, what kind of happiness? If you're having a legal conflict, then you should choose to have, you'll have good luck or something in that month. And therefore, we're all running around dancing and singing that we're happy in Adar. You guys have to admit that that's extra strange, even for the kind of sources that I like to bring you guys. Now, you'll say, but Tehila, go look at Rashi. Rashi will explain everything. So we look at Rashi, and Rashi says, well, the month of Adar, it has Purim, and then the month of Nisan has Pesach, and those are related to one another. And so therefore we're happy. And you're like, whoa. We've been busy trying to figure out how Adar is related to the month of Av. Now you're connecting, Rashi, you're connecting Adar to the month of Nisan. And then you're telling us that the kind of happiness we have, there's certain types of happiness that we have on holidays. Maybe it's having a celebratory meal, special prayers. You're saying the special kind of happiness that we need to have now is that we're going to have good luck in these times because somehow all this is related to Pesach. That is super strange. I think maybe the key to understanding this is actually a different midrash in the tractate of Megillah. There it says, it's interesting, the Megillah, it doesn't say that Haman just, threw a lottery to see which day it should be. It said first he tried to figure out the month and then the day. And he specifically went first to the month because the month had significance. It wasn't like he was just picking a day. He wanted to first focus in on a month that would be good for destroying Israel. And the Midrash says that when it fell on Adar, he was extraordinarily happy, because he knew that Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moses had died in the month of Adar. So he said that means that's a bad luck month for the Jewish people. Therefore, he was happy. But the Midrash says the joke was on him because he didn't realize that the righteous are known to be born and to die at the same day very often. And so Moshe actually also was born in Adar, meaning at the beginning of our salvation started in Adar as well. So you, Haman, think that that's our dark time, but it's actually our light time. Now, if we sort of try to bring this all together, what does that mean? It means that there's a connection between the type of salvation that we have on Passover, the type of salvation that we have on Adar, and that the Talmud is trying to draw our attention to a certain type of happiness that we're supposed to draw in these months. Okay? So, and then it's also related to the month of Av and to the destruction of the temple, but as like a mirror opposite. So let's try to bring all these ideas together. What is it trying to tell us? Does that mean that, or is it trying to tell us, well, there's good luck months and bad luck months? Is it like a horoscope? That seems to be Haman's approach. That doesn't seem to be our approach. I think if we put this all together, what do we know? We have holidays that celebrate different things, but the real holidays of salvation, where it looked like our neck was in the noose and we were about to be destroyed, but then Hashem saved us mercifully, those are Purim and Pesach. We have Hanukkah too, but Hanukkah was a 26-year war, and the day that we celebrate it was for the miracle of the oil. It wasn't like the specific day of the salvation. We have two holidays that mark real salvation. On the other hand, we have the month of Av, where Hashem dealt with us less in the attribute of mercy, but more in the attribute of justice, where we got what we deserved. We sinned and we had destruction. And so that's a time, what are the sages teaching us? That when you have a month like the month of Av, it's a time for caution and reflection and realizing that you need to have a fear of heaven and, to tread very, very cautiously and carefully. When the month of Adar begins, what is the Midrash telling us? Adar is a time that lends itself to salvation. It's a time that Hashem set into sort of the calendar where he is extra generous in showing us his mercy, that he's with us, that he will deal with us miraculously, even when things seem to be lost. Why is Rashi connecting Purim to Passover? Because he's saying, look carefully, look at this Midrash, pay attention. It's true that the final salvation of Passover happened in the month of Nisan. But when did it begin? It began with the birth of Moshe. When were all of the plagues? They were all in the month of Adar. So he's saying, pay attention. Even the salvation of Passover is really rooted in the month of Adar. And so that moment was set into time. And he's saying that when our enemies look at those times, they don't really understand our relationship with Hashem. They don't understand that Hashem, through dark times, accompanies us and lifts us up with mercy. And so he didn't understand that relationship. He just looked at the darkness of the month of Adar and thought this is going to be a great time for annihilation. He didn't understand. And so when we look at Adar, we see these times in our history where Hashem said, I see that you're in the darkest place, but I'm going to save you. I'm going to lift you up. And so when the Talmud is saying that's a good time to have, your conflict with, it specifically says in the Talmud, a conflict with a Gentile. What does that mean, a conflict with a Gentile? Is that just like, oh, well, I was having some lawsuit, let me go do it in Adar? What it's trying to say is that when you have a conflict and you feel like all is lost, focus in on the message of the month of Adar. Try to bring that into Adar and connect with that special time where Hashem is so generous with his love to us, specifically in our relationship with the nations that would seek our destruction, with people that would seek our destruction. And so it's a time for not a happiness of, oh yeah, let's drink and merry make and eat food. It's a totally different kind of happiness. The Talmud is saying, don't think that this is the regular happiness. This is the happiness that comes from that quiet confidence and knowledge that even in dark times, Hashem is going to come and save us like he did in Egypt and like he did in the book of Esther. So with that, I wish us a Chodesh Tov, a blessed new month of Adar that we go in and experience in all of our dealings and in all of our frightening, interactions, that we feel that energy of Adar giving us that emunah and bitachon, that faith in Hashem, that He is with us, just like He was with our fathers. Bye, guys. Have a great month.